we got a great show today. We got the review of the movie Soul with our movie critic, Rita Cinema. But first, our man, Achilles Rain, in to discuss some NBA 8 things of the week. Let's start it out. Are you ready to get into some NBA action, Achilles?
Oh, yeah, buddy. Let's do this.
All right. So my 8 things for the week. We're going to start out at number 8. And it took 2 weeks, but Kyrie Irving is already causing problems. He decided he did not want to play yesterday. I guess he sent a text to his teammates, which I guess is cool. But anyway, Nets go on and win. They continue their pretty solid play. Now 2-0 without Kevin Durant and 1-0 without Kyrie Irving. But this act is getting a little old. I hate to be that person, but this dude, if he doesn't want to play basketball, don't play basketball. No one cares.
Yeah, I know that we touched on the subject a little bit, back when he had that whole, I'm not talking to the media anymore, please respect my decision, kind of letter that he let out to the media. He didn't want to talk to him, but he gave them a letter letting him know that he wasn't going to talk to him anymore. But this has kind of been an ongoing thing with Kyrie. We've seen it, basically since his entry into the NBA, that he's always got something going on. It's getting a little much for me. I'm starting to get to that point where I'm done listening to you. I'm done hearing about you. At first it was like, okay, I don't have to hear from you. I just want to watch you play. And now it's getting to a point where, you know what, I kind of don't want to deal with you at all anymore. I know that whole situation that happened with him not playing the game against the 76ers. Apparently they said it was for personal reasons. Now, when they asked Coach Nash about it, he was unaware of what those personal issues were. And apparently he wasn't even aware that he wasn't going to play until 30 minutes prior to tip-off. So I don't know what to make of this whole situation. I think it's getting a little out of hand.
Yeah. My problem with it isn't even that he doesn't want to play. It's that he just leaves his teammates out there. Karis LeVert is the one answering questions, and he's got to make up the, oh, yeah, we support him. He sent us a text, blah, blah, blah. He's our guy. It's whatever. But this is the stuff that just gets tiresome. It's like, yeah, you are our guy, and you're a great player, but we're left holding the bag here, answering all these questions about you, and it doesn't lead to us wanting to play with you. And really, right now, Karis LeVert is carrying them. So, bye. It's at a point where I'm like, why do you want to deal with this mess? Now, I know maybe it has something with, Kevin will then complain, but Kevin's on a long-term deal now. So, it's whatever. I don't know. I can't handle this kind of nonsense now from him. It's something new every couple weeks. And I think I don't remember if I told you or Fish or something, the second Durant, got that 7-game isolation thing and missed 4 games. I was like, well, Kyrie's going to find a way so he doesn't have to play, because if Kevin doesn't have to play, that means I don't have to play.
Yeah. My biggest thing with him is the fact that he wants the respect of a leader.
Yeah.
But he doesn't act like a leader. He knows that his team's already hurt. They have the issue with Durant where he can't play because of, the contact tracing. They have Tyler Johnson out on quarantine. Spencer Dinwiddie with his ACL surgery. Then they have Clayton with the right knee. Perry. They've got a bunch of players that just can't contribute right now. And as a leader, you have to step up and not put it on another guy's shoulders. LeVert, like you said, he exploded. He had a really good game, which was great for him because it puts him in the limelight a little bit. But he's not making Kyrie type money.
Not yet, at least.
Not yet, exactly. But if this continues, they might just, swap him out and just pay the guy. But what I'm trying to say is you want to act like an alpha. Or at least a beta. Act like one.
That's a
every
great
game.
Point.
I just don't like. I feel like it's disrespectful to your team, as much as they have to come up with those, typical answers that we get from players about supporting your teammates and things like that. There has to be some sort of disgruntledness in that locker room, just from his attitude and his actions.
Well, this is what happened in Boston too. they defended him, and then it just keeps snowballing and snowballing, and then it gets to the point like that Celtics season 2 years ago where everybody's just tired of it. And it's like, dude, if you don't want to be here, then don't be here. This isn't, like mandatory. It's, don't show up if you don't want to be here, but don't pretend to be, some superstar and franchise carrier and leader of, a ball club if you aren't willing to handle the responsibility that it would be of this. It's annoying. And really this Brooklyn Nets team has played some pretty solid basketball. They had a little stretch in there where they didn't play all that great, but the last 2 games, they've been really good wins over Utah and Philly. So, they're contenders right now in the East, especially with the way a handful of these Eastern teams have gotten out of the block. We'll get to a couple of those in a little bit.
Yeah, so far this month, they're 2-2. Probably not great, but if you stop and think, they had their entire roster healthy and good to go, they'd probably be 4-0 so far this month. But kudos to the rest of that Nets team and staff for stepping up. But seriously, this is just getting old. It feels like dealing with a little child, where if so-and-so gets this toy, I want this toy as well. If so-and-so isn't going to school, then I don't want to go to school either. And it's just getting old.
Yeah, definitely. All right. So I think we've touched on enough of the Nets. Hopefully this will be the last time we have to speak of Kyrie Irving so far on the year. But I feel like it probably won't be, but I would like to hope so, because it's possibly my least favorite topic to talk about. I like talking about basketball and how teams are playing, and not what a douchebag someone is being in the locker room. But anyway, we'll move on to some actual basketball. The New York Knicks. I think they might be good. Are they good? I don't know, but I've watched them play, the last couple of weeks. Julius Randle is all of a sudden turned into possibly the second best power forward in the league. Elfrid Payton is running a team. RJ Barrett occasionally makes 3-point shots and is looking pretty good. Mitchell Robertson's man in that middle. I can't give enough credit. I didn't think the Tom Thibodeau hire was a great hire. I thought he was a little too old school, but it seems like it's just what this Knicks team need. And I don't want to, go overboard this early in the season, but they look like a workhorse team who can grind you away. And in the East, if you're a workhorse team who will work for wins, you put yourself in position to get into the playoffs.
Yeah, I agree with you. I know that it's early on in the season, so it's hard to really, come out and say that these guys are going to be contenders or anything. But, they currently sit at 5-3. And I think that a lot of their current play, you have to give some of the credit to Thibodeau. I know that you probably weren't a huge fan of him being hired there, but certain coaches fit and certain teams buy into their coach's system and what the philosophy they're trying to implement. And I think that's kind of what we've got going on here. Players are buying in, and it's helping out the team in general. Julius Randle has been playing really well as of late. I know a lot of people are considering him a potential all-star if he can continue this type of pace. He's been doing pretty good playing two-way action also, which is not something we're used to seeing from him. Back when he was a Laker, I know that you'd have moments where he show sparks on the offensive side and do no defense, and then vice versa. He would show some sparks on the defensive side and not much offensively. But, right now he's averaging 23 points per game, 12 boards, and almost 7.5 assists per game. So he's playing lights out right now. And if this continues, his team's only going to continue to improve their record also.
Yeah, I was going to ask, what do you make of this Randle jump? I mean, I think when he came out in the draft a handful of years ago, when the Lakers drafted him, I really liked that draft pick. I liked Julius Randle in college. I thought he was, I don't know if I thought he was this type of guy, 25, 12 and 7, but I thought he could sort of be a Swiss Army knife, do everything, Anthony Mason type, but a little bit more explosive, a little bit better scorer. And, it got off to a bad start in the Lakers where he broke his leg that rookie year. And then, those Lakers teams when he was on it were just, I don't even know. I don't know what to call those teams. A mess would probably be the best version. And then, he went to a couple stops, probably got a reputation as a bit of a ball hog and a me type of guy. But when he was at Kentucky, he was never really a me type of guy. And it just seems like he's been unlocked. He's still not the most efficient player scoring wise, but it's really coming around his playmaking and, his rebounding. And he's even trying to play defense. I mean, I wouldn't call him a lockdown defender, but the effort is there.
Yeah, he's definitely shown signs of being a decent two-way player. I still think that his ability on the offensive side is always going to outweigh his ability on the defensive side of the ball. But I think him just kind of not giving up and continuing working on his game, as well as improvements by other guys like Mitchell Robinson, and even some contributions from some of the other guys like Alec Burks, Austin Rivers, Noel. I think all that plays into it. He's definitely the team leader right now when it comes to stats. But I think it's like I said, it's everything falling into place. It's the coach, it's the players buying in, it's the role players, doing their part and contributing. I think it's all playing into him having a good season. And I can't say that I didn't see this type of potential. I just didn't expect it after what we've seen over the last couple seasons.
Yeah. I'm curious about a little bit of a question here. Toppin has been hurt. He hasn't been playing. I assume he's going to come back in the next couple weeks. That's what I've heard. How do you fit him in here with Randall playing so well? It seems like it would be detrimental to sort of, take a little bit of Randall's minutes. And then you got Mitchell and Robinson in there. It's going to be a tough spot trying to fit him back in, especially with his liabilities on defense. How do you see that working out with the Knicks?
Yeah, it's kind of like, being between a rock and a hard place, between a sword and a hard place, because you're almost danged if you do, you're danged if you don't. Now, basketball is one of those weird sports where, yeah, you can develop guys by having them watch a little bit and learn, but you need to get them out on the court. This is part of the developmental process, which is one of the reasons why, they had the D League and all that other stuff, because you had to develop players by getting them on the court.
I think it's doubly important for someone like Toppin, whose game is based a lot on athleticism. Years that, and he spent 3 years in college, so he's a little older than some of those guys. So years spent on the bench where his athleticism is sort of going to waste, and he's not developing sort of basketball skills. I don't know. It just seems weird, but I was just curious how that you think they go about that.
Yeah, to me, it's really confusing. I really don't know how you play this, because Julius Randle, like you said, he's coming into his own now as potential all-star player, and cutting his minutes would only diminish his ability to continue to not just improve but to contribute. So I think it's a really touchy subject. It's really sensitive how you deal with this, but that's one of the reasons why you have a coach like you do with Thibodeau. Is he knows how to deal with these type of situations, and I think he's going to do what's going to be best for the team as a whole. Now, whether that be to cut down on his minutes slightly and then put Obi in there, I don't know exactly how they're going to go about it, but I definitely think it's going to be an issue that they're going to have to address sooner rather than later.
Last question on this: do you think maybe you could play them together? You'd have to bench Mitchell Robinson, which has really been the anchor of their defense. I don't know if you could pull that off. Would you play them together?
I mean, I think you could probably pull that off in certain situations where Robinson isn't on the court, but you still, like you said, he's been the anchor, and he's also shown improvement. So it'd be hard
he's not getting a foul every 15 seconds.
Yeah, I mean, he still has to work on that because he's still not where he should be, but he's a lot better. So. Yeah. I think that it'll be also a little detrimental to his development to pull him. But if I had to pull anybody to further develop, Obi, I think that it would probably him, and then just play both of them, a little smaller ball. But I think it could work. I think they can make it work if they can. this team's probably only going to be even better. So they might be the surprise team this season. Obviously, it's still early on, so I'm not ready to crown them yet. But they look good so far.
Yeah. Do you think this can continue? And do you think they have a shot at making the playoffs here?
I mean, if you ask me right now, I'm going to say no. It's still way too early on, and I think the teams are still kind of getting into the flow of things. I know that we're pretty early on in the season, but it wasn't too long ago that we just ended the last season. So I don't think can it continue? Yes, it can definitely continue because the improvement is there. We can see it on film. Do I think it'll continue? Probably not. I think as teams get more acclimated and to their systems and kind of get more into the flow of the season, I think they'll probably start losing a few more games. But still, you've got to applaud the improvement they've made. If the season were to end right now, I think they're in 5th place in the East right now. So they're in a lot better position than I thought they would be at this point in the season. So that's something to be said.
Yeah. Okay. We'll move on from the surprising Knicks and we'll go on the bad side of things. The Minnesota Timberwolves have looked abysmal of late. That game yesterday was just terrible. Karl Anthony Towns is hurt, and they didn't even look all that good when he was there. I'm just watching that game yesterday. I'm wondering if it's at a point right now where I say, I want Anthony Edwards and everyone else is up for eBay sale right now, and see if I can get what I can get and, try to rebuild this puppy. I think you could get a lot for Anthony Towns. I don't know what the market would be for a D'Angelo Russell. I'm sure Beasley would be wanted on the market. Culver looks like kind of a bust. He's just looked lost out there in the game. I'm sure a contender wouldn't mind having Rubio as a backup point guard. So, I mean, they have pieces that I think people would go after, but am I just overreacting here, or as I think this situation, I'm reading it, is just, it's a mess.
See, I personally don't think you're overreacting. And I go back to the draft. I think we both pretty much thought that they had a poor draft. We thought
The
they
other
could have.
thing I forgot to mention, they don't have their pick. The Warriors have their pick this year. That's, I think, more playing in my head of why you try to rebuild this thing, because, I mean, you're going to suck. It's not going to get easier in the West, and your pick's going to the Warriors. So I don't know. I'll let you continue.
I mean, all I'm saying is that I know that there were a few people out there who thought that this team had a chance at being contenders. I personally didn't, and I think most of us did not. Although they started off the season 2-0, I think, and then they've lost 6 in a row. Is that what their current losing streak is at?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, even though I didn't think they would contend, I still think that this losing streak is somewhat surprising. Now, how much of it plays into the fact that they haven't really had a healthy Towns? You look at their rotation minutes, and their top 4 guys are all guards. And it's kind of what we expected when we saw how the team was building up. I think the guy in 5th place for minutes played is their center, I believe, Reed, who, I mean, he's doing okay, but
You can say it. He's an oaf who is not very good. He got tooled the other night. I watched the game by Jokic, but nonetheless, everybody gets tooled by Jokic, but that's not a great comparison. But they had to bring in Vanderbilt to guard him. And if you're bringing in Jared Vanderbilt because your quote unquote starting center can't guard the other starting center, we have some problems here.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think, see, the thing about this team is that they've shown signs. You know what I mean? They haven't been good, but they've shown signs. Like I said, they started off 2-0, which I don't know how many people expected that. Then they continued that with losing 6 straight. Thursday night's game, I believe that they were up after that first quarter, and then they gave up 47 points in the
Yeah, the
second quarter.
defense was abysmal. I was watching the game and I was just like, no one even wants to guard anybody. I felt bad for Ricky Rubio. I'm like, man, this guy signed for Phoenix for a long-term deal. Chris Paul decides he wants to go there, and then they ship him back to his quote-unquote hometown in Minnesota. And I'm like, that guy just must be in misery right now, playing with a bunch of these selfish guys who can't do anything.
So you look at that game, and like I said, they showed some signs, but they also melted down. Go back to that Tuesday game. Who were they playing? The Nuggets, I think.
Yes.
And they were basically leading the entire game until they got into the fourth quarter,
Yeah.
where they were
And it was
completely
just,
shut down.
yeah.
I mean, it's like I said, they showed some signs. I just don't think they have the right makeup, the right build for a team to contend. I didn't expect much from them this season, and I think that I know it's early on, so I can't say that a team isn't a contender when they're playing well because it's early. I also can't say that a team is done because they're not playing well because it's early. So I'm not going to say they're done, but I don't foresee them improving much, even with the healthy Towns. I think he helps them win a few more games, but I just think that the makeup, the build of this team is definitely not where it should be. So I don't foresee them getting any better.
Yeah. All right. Last question. They hire you, Achilles Rain, GM of the Minnesota Timberwolves. Of these guys on the roster, which ones would you not trade right now?
Oh gosh. See, I think their first mistake would be hiring me, and it's probably a move they would make just based off their history. But I mean,
I think your phone's ringing now. Is it lighting up in the background there?
yeah. Hold on. Hello. Yes. No, I will not take that job. Thank you. um, yeah, I don't know, to be honest with you. I'd have to see more. I'd have to see at least a quarter of the season in to really feel comfortable about making any decisions about who I'd let go and who I'd keep. I feel bad for guys like Rubio and guys like Towns, who it almost feels like their careers are going to be wasted away on this franchise. And I'm not trying to, throw dirt on the franchise or their fans, but they just don't seem to be doing things the right way. And I don't think that it's a quick fix. I think that this is almost, like you said, a rebuild type of scenario where you just have to blow it all up and start from scratch.
Yeah. I'll go out on a positive note. I liked what I've seen from Anthony Edwards. I think he could be a really solid forward in this league. A whole lot of explosive athleticism. He wasn't one of the ones I saw yesterday who wasn't, trying on defense. I do worry a little bit that as the season wears on and losses start to pile up, that, bad habits start to creep in. But I've liked what I've seen so far. All right. Let's move on to the big three in the West. I think we thought they would be all contenders here. And two of them, their defense is horrible. One of them, their offense is horrible, though their defense hasn't been all that great the last couple of games. But I'm going to go through the trifecta of Portland, Denver, Utah. I don't know which one to start out with. I think I'm going to start out with Utah, who just had back-to-back losses to Brooklyn, sans Kevin Durant, and clearly Kyrie Irving was already off on a trip to Nowhereville by that point. And then it got thrashed again, blowing a lead to the Knicks. So let's start with the Jazz. What are you making of this start? Traditionally, they have gotten off to slow starts, I will say that. But I'm not liking the mojo of this right now.
Yeah, I mean, they said 4-4 currently, which, probably not where a lot of people
like all
have
the
them.
West sits out right now too. I should mention that.
It's definitely a tough conference, and we're probably going to see this at least for the beginning of the season as kind of things start to pan out. You might start seeing some separation with some of the better teams, but I don't think it's as bad as a lot of people think. I know that they've had some miscues on defense and things like that, but I'm a little more surprised at the distribution of stats on this team as a whole. I believe we have Donovan Mitchell, who's leading that team in points per game at 21.3. He's not really lighting it up as far as his shooting percentage goes. I think he's at just under 38%, which is probably not where you want to be, but he's the team leader. So I don't know how much you can take away from that. Just right behind him, you have Mike Conley at 17.4 points per game. And he's actually shooting the ball a little bit better. He's at 43.2%. So Clarkson is just slightly behind that. I mean, they're getting contributions from just about everybody, but I think that they're still missing some things. I don't know what it is. I can't quite put my finger on it. Maybe as the season progresses, it'll kind of, reveal itself a little bit more. I don't know how you feel about it. I'm trying to figure out exactly how this team is going to get everything going.
Well, I haven't thought Conley has looked bad, which is a bright spot for him considering how bad he looked last year. Maybe I overrated how quick Bojan would come back. He has not looked great right now. And, when you think about it, he's been off for over a year. He had surgery on that wrist. That might be messing him up a little bit. He just hasn't looked quite right. So maybe if he can get his scoring back in there, they can, that offensive game will start to rise up a little bit. I don't know. I've just watched, and maybe I caught them at a bad time. I've watched their last couple games, and I just hadn't liked the way they look. Like you said, Mitchell he's basically looked like Allen Iverson, minus being able to score 30 points a game, being inefficient, and has been scoring 20 points a game, being inefficient. So I guess I should probably say he's looked like Dion Waiters or something.
I mean, they're not doing horrible. And like I said, I think that as the season progresses, they'll probably kind of get a hold of this thing a little bit better. And then we might see the team that we all kind of expect, but it's early on, and I'm not going to hold that against them. I do think, like I said, that there's some things that they're going to have to fix and some issues they're going to have to address. I don't know. I know that Rudy Gobert's not really, an offensive powerhouse. He's there for, more of a defensive anchor. He's doing his job. I think he's averaging at about 13 boards per game right now. So he's doing his job, but, I think you have to get him a little more involved in the offense.
Yeah. Okay. We'll move on to the other two teams on this list. We'll go to Portland. The defense has just been atrocious, which has really been their main problem. A little bit of it has been Dame, discounting last night. Of course, he drains 8 threes the night before we record this podcast. But before that, he'd been a little off. His shooting hadn't been great. I don't worry so much about that. It's ebbs and flows. If this went on in the middle of the year, none of us would even, pick up on it. But because it's so early, we're like, what's going on with Dame? I'm not too worried about that. But the defensive issues I am a little worried about. They brought in Derek Jones. They brought in Robert Covington, to sort of shore up this defense. You're getting Nurkic back full time, but it just seems like they can't find a rhythm on defense right now.
Yeah, I see where you're coming from. I personally never really thought of this team as a defensive powerhouse. I didn't think that they were going to change much from the genetic makeup of Portland Trailblazers of the past.
They should be able to stop the Bulls.
Yeah, I see where you're coming from, but to me, this team is built around two offensive guys. Damian Lillard.
I dislike losses to Bulls.
Yeah, I get where you're coming from. Like I said, it's early though. It's really early.
Losses to Bulls at home.
You must have had something riding on that game because
no, I was just watching it in despair as Zach LaVine was carrying the Bulls in some weird center I hadn't heard of, which is very rare considering I know every player in the NBA was dominating the game for the Bulls. And I'm like, what's going on here? And I'm like, why is Portland giving up layups? I shouldn't overreact by one game. I just, I've watched a couple others. I don't think I would have thought the defense was going to be good. But I thought it'd be a little bit better. Now, some of this is Zach Collins, once again, broke that toe, and he's going to be out even longer. He's probably out for the season, which is just sort of bad luck. That guy's been snake bit all year. But I don't know. It just I want this team to be good because I think I like every player on it. Maybe not Melo, but everybody else.
See, to me, this team is, like I said, they're built around their offense, and they're not going to beat teams by shutting them down. They're going to beat teams by overpowering them offensively. Right now as it sits, Lillard is averaging 27.6 points per game. He's shooting at about 44%. And then you have McCollum, who's averaging just
McCollum
under
has
20.
been ridiculously good. I will say that.
Yeah, he's just under 27 points per game. He's at 26.8, I believe is what it was. And he's shooting at 43, just a little bit above 43%. So, both of those guys together are getting the job offensively. They're getting it done. And that's kind of what you expect. That's the makeup of this team. This is what they're going to do basically all season. And that's about it. I mean, they're not a defensive team, and I didn't expect them to be, and I don't think they're going to be. Even if they do get some improvement and they do get guys back from injury, I don't think that they're going to be a defensive powerhouse team whatsoever. They're going to be a run and gun type team that are going to basically have to outscore you to beat you, and that's pretty much what I expect the Portland Trail Blazers to be. Now, they've got some really talented players, so I still think that they can definitely contend. I just don't know exactly where I see them, like in the seedings. Again, I go back to my main talking point. It's early in the season, so I'm not going to take too much away from this, but I think they're exactly what I expected them to be this season.
Yeah. Okay. We'll move on to the other team that hasn't played defense so far, the Denver Nuggets. And now maybe this is just sort of a slow start because they played so late into the year, last year, and, resetting. Jokic has looked ridiculously good. He's been carrying them. I've been very disappointed with Jamal Murray's start to the year. I don't think he's carried his side of the load with Jokic. Gary Harris continues to sort of be the black hole that no one's talking about. They gave him a big deal a couple years ago, and I don't think he's pulling his weight. Now, Porter's missed the last couple games because of, COVID protocols, but, Millsap's looking old. I haven't loved the way Barton's looked. I have liked Campazzo coming in and being a little bit of an energy defensive guard, but it's hard to get that minutes mix right with Morris. I don't know. This team did not get off to the sort of start I thought they would. I thought they'd be, sort of a Milwaukee style, of the West and just take that number one seed and run with it. And then, in April and May, we start asking questions, is this team built to win games in the playoffs? And right now we're asking questions, can we make sure this team gets in the playoffs?
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. Now,
I don't totally worry about them getting in the playoffs. I think they'll be fine.
Oh, so do I. But I think that as far as these three teams are concerned, to me, this is probably the biggest surprise. I definitely didn't expect them to be at 3-5 at this point in the season. That being said, I don't think Murray's playing as bad as you think. I know that when you sit down and watch a game, it doesn't look like what we expected him to look like. But listen to this. Jokic is averaging 25.9 points per game, shooting at a ridiculous 57.6%. Okay. Now, Jamal Murray is just slightly behind that at 22 points per game, shooting at 47.7%. So he's not far off. He just needs to step up a little bit more. That team is basically, once we get Michael Porter back, that's the big three for that team. That's offensively, that's where they're going to get the majority of their points from those three guys. But when you look at the other stats, Jokic he's leading the team in assists. I think that's another one of the biggest. He's
leading the league in assists right now.
What is he at, 10.9 or something like that? Almost 11 assists per game. I mean, that's insane.
Yeah.
That's not what you
played has just been amazing. It's why I've probably been critical of Murray, because I pretty much watched every Nugget game, and it just seems like Jokic is doing kind of everything, and Murray sort of, going around and taking shots. Now, maybe that's a little bit unfair. I just wanted a little more. I want sort of LeBron and Anthony Davis when I get those two. I want my 50 points a game instead of my 45. But maybe I'm asking a little much, especially this early in the season.
Yeah, I mean, listen, we saw the way they ended last season. They can get hot, and once they get hot, they're one of those teams that are dangerous because they've got contributors. Maybe not offensively, but at least on the defensive side of the board, like they can play pretty gritty defense. Now, Jokic, man, he's to me, he's just a monster, and I don't think that, like you said, I think that it's probably a little bit of a disservice the way Murray's playing, but you also have to look at the flow of the game. You can't really take away from Jokic to give to Murray either, because he's just to me he's probably one of the top contenders for. I know it's super early on in the season, but if the season were to end today, to me he's probably one of those top guys for MVP. He's just doing a little bit of everything, and it's surprising for them to currently have the record that they have, but it's early on. I trust they'll get it together, and I trust that they'll definitely improve going forward.
Yeah. Okay. So of these three teams right now, which one would you be most worried about?
I would say Utah.
Yeah, I think we agree. I'm a little worried about Utah too. Now, that being said, I think they've started slow, like the last 6 years in a row. And then by the All-Star break, they're sitting at like a 3-4 seed after they rip off 12 or 13 wins. But I don't know. I just haven't liked the way they looked early.
Yeah, I agree with you. Like I said, I think that all these teams have things that they have to fix. I just think that Utah probably will have a harder time fixing these things than these other two teams.
Yeah. All right. So we'll move to, I guess, sad, disappointing news. Markel Fultz, who was really starting to, live up to his potential as the number one pick in the draft. Really was liking the way he was playing for the Orlando Magic, who I don't know if anybody knows are 6-2 and second in the East right now. And him and Vucevic were really flowing together. Ross and Fournier were playing good ball. Just sad about Fultz. What do you make of the injury, and what do you make of the Magic right now? Do you think Fultz can rebuild himself again? Because I think it took a lot for him to rebuild himself after being that number one pick and, having the shoulder injury that was, in his head. But what do you make of this situation here?
I don't know. I mean, I know that shoulder injury, probably a lot of us look at it and we're like, okay, this was more of a, your manhood was injured more than your shoulder. But I don't know. I think he grew mentally from that. I
Yes,
think
definitely.
it definitely made him a better, not just person, but player, and it made him focus more on his game. And I think it was apparent based off the way he was playing this season. I know that he's out now for the entire season for, after tearing his ACL. The injury happened in the first quarter of that Cavaliers game. And although he was driving to the basket, it was still a non-contact injury, which are usually the worst kind because then it's serious. But he had been averaging career highs prior to that injury. I know that's not anything to really gloat about, but coming from where he was at.
Well, yeah, 3 years ago, we'd probably be more shocked that he was still in the league.
Yeah, exactly.
Anything. He was traded for basically peanuts to the Magic.
Yeah, I think that he was starting to kind of come into his own in his second year as the starting point guard for the Magic. But he was averaging 14.3 points per game and just over 6 assists per game. So he was kind of getting into the flow of things, and it's very disappointing to see it happen. A lot of people were considering him a bust already. Especially after, like you said, being the number one overall pick and not really playing like one. We've seen it countless times where these really high picks just don't pan out. It's really hard to tell how these guys are going to play when it gets to playing the professional ranks. But the Magic are 6-2. They're second in the East. And now they're going to really depend on Cole Anthony, I think, to step up. And they've got a couple other guys in Jordan and who's the other guy? Karen. Is
Yeah.
that? I think those two guys, they're kind of like two-way players. I think maybe they can help a little bit. The biggest issue with the whole injury for them is the fact that the Magic are one of the few teams that have their entire roster completely guaranteed money. So basically, they can't really sign anybody unless they cut somebody and have to pay him their guaranteed money. So they're in a really delicate situation. I don't know exactly where they go from here. Uh, I wasn't expecting them to be as good as they've been playing. So I guess they could go for that hardship exception. Because they have two starters that are out and they have a role player that isn't playing, so they might be able to sign someone off, a free agency like that. But I don't know, man. I think this injury is really going to hurt them. I really like the potential he was starting to show, and he was really starting to come into his own as a player. So it's very unfortunate for them and for him, but I do expect him to, you know, be stronger, at least mentally, from coming back from this. I think he can do it, especially, after what he endured, not living up to his potential early on in his career.
Yeah. Well, I was going to ask you, can this run continue with Cole Anthony sort of guiding this ship? He's a much different, you say point guard, but I mean, basically he's a scoring guard who occasionally passes the ball. Much different than Fultz, but can this run for the Magic continue? I mean, Vucevic has been really good. Ross has been really good. Gordon's been, what Aaron Gordon is. I just don't know if they can sustain with Cole Anthony there, though. My dark horse Cole Anthony Rookie of the Year pick at the beginning of the year now might look pretty good because he's going to get some shots coming his way.
Yeah, I don't think they can sustain this type of play. And it's not because I don't think that they have guys that they can depend on. Like you said, they've got a lot of guys that are good. And it's not that I don't, think that Cole Anthony's any good. I think he's good. I think he's decent. But he's just a different type of player. What we were getting from Fultz is not what we're going to get from Cole. So to say that they can sustain this type of play, I don't think so. I don't think they can. I think unless they completely change the dynamic of that team and the way they're going to play going forward, they can still win games. They've, like you said, they've got some really good players on that team, but it's going to take them changing their philosophy from, a guy who, I don't want to say pass first mentality, but definitely a guy who can get the ball to different
More
players.
willing to share the ball, I think.
Exactly. So I think you got to change your philosophy a little bit, but I still think that they're probably going to end up being better than a lot of us expected.
Yeah. Okay, we'll move on to our next one. We went through the West teams that decide defense is optional. We're going to go to two Eastern teams that have, I guess, decided defense is optional. We'll start with Atlanta, and we'll move to the complete and utter train wreck that is the Washington Wizards defense. Any truth that some team is going to sign you to a 10-day contract and have you play the Wizards and have you score 20 points on them?
Well, see, I was actually planning on throwing up a 75-point game and then quitting after that so that my average could stay at 75, go down as the highest scoring player in history. But no, there is no truth to that rumor.
Well, if there was a team to do it, would be the Wizards. But we'll start out with the Hawks. Their fun, hot, fresh start has pretty much ended because they've been awful since we last talked about them. They can't guard anyone. Their big free agent sightings can't really shoot right now. I think their best player right now is DeAndre Hunter. Give or take what you think of Trae Young and his atrocious defense, which nobody wants to mention while he's scoring 30 points a game, but giving up 45. But I think we both had some hesitation about this Hawks team. It looked a little nerve-wracking early, but this last week, I think we've seen what the Hawks are. Fun to watch, but can't guard.
Yeah, I mean the Hawks started off 3-0, and they've lost 3 straight games, putting them at 500. They're at 4-4, I think. So probably not the ideal start. Probably not the ideal. I don't want to say finish because we're not at the end, but you get where I'm saying. It's just not a good stretch of games over the last 3. Now, I don't want to completely fault the team as a whole because they've seemed to have had like injury issues in just about every game. Um, I know that Capella, their center, was hurt for a little bit. Gallinari, Rondo, they've been in and out of
Yes,
the
I
lineup.
know. It's stunning. Gallinari is hurt. Who would have foreseen that coming?
But but I still think that I don't know. Like you said, I didn't know which way to lean on this team. I was really confused about whether I thought they'd be good or be bad. They're currently sitting at 500, so that actually hurts my opinion of what I would think even more. But again, a lot of this has to do because of injuries, so I'm not going to really hold that against them. Trey Young definitely needs to work on his defensive game because, like you said, I'm not sure what his plus minus is right now, but I can almost guarantee you that it's not good.
All right. So I have one other question. You give Bogdanovich a 4-year, $80 million deal, seemingly to start at the 2 guard, and you start him the first game and then pretty much bring him off the bench the rest of the thing. Now, I know Gallinari getting hurt, you know, God foreseen that. He's only spent his whole career pretty much on the injury list, but he's playing 25 minutes a game. Is this what you paid $80 million for? When you already had DeAndre Hunter and Cam Reddish and Kevin Herter there?
Yeah, well, when this happened, when the deal went down, we were both shocked about it. And I think this is the reason why we were shocked about it. We weren't sure how he was going to be utilized. Now, like you said, part of it has to do with injuries, but I'm sorry, if you're paying a guy that type of money, I want him on the court as long as he can stay out there and contributing as much as he can. And I mean, you look at the team leaders, he's not doing anything. He's not really up there for anything. You've got Trey Young and Collins leading you in the points per game. You've got Capella leading you in rebounds, and then Rondo and Young in assists. I mean, where is that money going to? It could have been used for so many other things, so many different assets you could have brought in to help, like maybe someone who plays defense. But I don't know. Again, I don't want to jump the gun. It's pretty early on, and maybe they figure something out, but I just don't see it, to be honest with you.
Yeah. All right. So we thought the Hawks defense is bad, but I don't know how much of the Wizards you've caught. I will say I've caught a lot of the Wizards because I quite enjoy watching them play basketball. But
Is that what you call it, basketball?
this is possibly the worst defensive team I've ever seen in my life. They rival some of those like 80s Nuggets teams, which, mind you, purposely played high-scoring games in the 130s and 140s. I think the Wizards are actually trying on defense, and they're just this awful. But it's not been a good ride for Scotty Brooks since he's gone to the Wizards. We'll start there and work our way through how bad this team seems to fit together defensively. But how long a leash do you think Scotty has left here?
Not very long. I think that it's just near about to the point where he's about to get choked. And I'm not trying to take anything away from him. He's kind of worked with what he's got. The team as a whole in general just doesn't mesh well. It doesn't seem like the type of team that you put together to even contend. To me, it almost seems like they needed to, fill that roster with some guys. That way they could actually play NBA games, and they just put together what they could. And that's the feel I'm getting for this. Now, you brought in guys like Westbrook for what? He's been sitting, basically every other game on back-to-backs. And I don't know if this is the type of trend that's going to continue. We'll definitely see it coming up because they've got quite a few back-to-back games coming up. And if you're bringing a guy like Westbrook who's super explosive, why not use him? I don't understand. I'm trying to figure this out. I'm trying to figure this team out. And, but to be completely honest with you, I don't even, like you said, they're entertaining to watch, not so entertaining to talk about.
Is there a way to help the defense? I just don't see options. I think Denny's, I guess, a solid defender, but you're asking a young rookie from Europe to anchor down a defense with a lot of bad defensive players. Rui's active. I don't know if he's a lockdown defender. I think a little bit of the problem is Thomas Bryant, who's been really good on offense, but is just a sieve at the rim. I just don't know how you sort of right this situation, especially when I definitely thought this would sort of be a East middle tier contender. But I was very wrong, I think.
Well, you think about it. You look at this, like I said, go back to the stats and look at that. Like they say, stats never lie. Their entire stat leader column is filled with guards. It's literally Beal and Westbrook for just about any stats, whether you look at points per game, rebounds, or assists. I mean, it's just those two guys. You need more. You need some sort of contribution that balances things out a little bit. And maybe that won't tire guys out. Maybe they can try to play some defense. I don't know, to be completely honest with you. To me, this team just needs a lot of help.
Yeah. We'll go with the same question I asked about the Western Conference team. Of the Hawks, of the Wizards, which of these two teams are you more worried about?
The Wizards.
Yeah, I think I'd have to agree. The Wizards would probably be my answer.
Yeah, and my only reasoning for that is, like I said, I don't know what this team's makeup is. Like I said, they've been sitting Westbrook every second game on a back-to-back. You've got quite a few of those coming up. He's also your assist leader right now at 11.8 assists per game. He's also your rebound leader right now at 10.7 rebounds per game. How is this going to work when you're sitting him every other game, and he's leading your team in just about every stat?
Yeah. All right. We'll go to a situation I don't think is bad, but it's just an observation I've made from watching them a handful of time. The New Orleans Pelicans, 4-4, like most of the West. They've been, hot and cold like most of the West. But I've watched Zion a lot, and there doesn't seem to be the explosiveness we saw in college, we saw in high school, and I'm a little worried that big thundering athletic, bruiser that we all, thought was going to be a unicorn in this league is more a trudging big man who can, get his 20 points and his 6 rebounds. But I think his rebounding numbers are what sort of show his athleticism isn't what it was 2 years ago. And the fact that he's like 20 years old, and if his athleticism is already dropping, is that a worrying sign?
I'll tell you what, it's funny that you brought that point up, because it's one of the things that I thought we would talk about. I'm not worried, and I'll tell you why. I don't know. I know that you watch these games, but there are a lot of people out there with the same type of concerning emotions as you have about him. And it derives from a talking point that was on sports media, that, he had lost a step, that he was slowing down. But when I watch the games, I don't think so. I don't think that's the case. He's definitely playing more minutes per game this time around. So I think he's trying to kind of lengthen his ability to play at a high level, which is very smart in my opinion. But I think he looks just as promising as before. I just think that he's not going out there with complete disregard for his own safety and everyone else and just flying over everybody and dunking on 3 guys at one time. He could still do those things. I think he can still do them. I just think that he's trying to, like I say, he's going for longevity more than anything, which, if you ask me, it's probably a smarter thing to do. Um, if he could stay healthy with the more minutes he's playing, I think that as the season progresses, you'll definitely see the numbers kind of balance themselves out a little bit more. As it stands right now, he's behind Brandon Ingram in points per game at 21.4. He's shooting at 55.9% from the field. So that's pretty awesome. He's not leading the team in rebounds, but that's because you got other guys like Steven Adams and Josh Hart who are going out there and fighting for rebounds. Like I said, I think that the Pelicans are really looking to conserve him for the long run. They realize that that team is basically going to go as far as he can carry them. And I think they're trying to keep him at full go for as long as they can possibly keep him. I think there'll definitely be games, though, where we'll see his explosiveness and we'll see him dunking on guys in and out. But I'm not worried, to be completely honest with you. I know that it's a little bit of a slow start for him, but I think he'll pick it up.
Well, I think that's what I was going to ask is maybe this is a calculation by the Pelicans and by himself to sort of just use his size and his body and not have to go full board like he did in college and high school because his body probably wouldn't hold up if he went like that. Maybe somebody like Blake Griffin, if he had, sort of learned how to do this earlier in his career, he might have held up a little better. There's no way to know. But, when he came out the draft, I compared it to someone like Sean Kemp, and he just he doesn't look like Sean Kemp right now. Early Sean Kemp. I don't know how young our listeners are. They might be thinking of Orlando Magic, Portland Trailblazers, heavily intoxicated and fat Sean Kemp. But go watch some Seattle Supersonics late 80s, early 90s games, and you'll see a completely dominant and athletic, huge big man, Sean Kemp, who was really great. And I thought we were going to get that from Zion. I'm just not seeing it right now. But it might be calculated, especially for somebody his size. But I think the rebounding thing is what concerns me. If I told you he was going to be under 10 rebounds a game 2 years ago when he got drafted, would you have believed that?
No, there's no way I would have believed that. But like I said, I think a lot of it is because of the system. He's got other guys that are putting their bodies on the line, going up for rebounds, and it takes away from the necessity of having him to strain himself that much more. I think it's a smart play. I think a lot of it has to do with Stan Van Gundy. I think it's just the type of system that he's rolling out, and I think it's a smart system to play. I think that, like I said, this team is going to go about as far as he can carry them, and they're trying to keep him healthy and fresh for the long run. They're not looking at, making a few highlights here and there and then him getting hurt and they're back to what they've been over the last few seasons. So I think they're going about it the right way. I think we're bound to see some explosive plays sometime this season. I just don't think we're going to see him as often as we're used to seeing him.
Okay, so we'll count Achilles not worried. We'll count me a little worried. But we'll move on to our number one thing on the week. The Toronto Raptors. They've been a fun team for the last, I guess it's probably been about 10 years now. But they've been really bad, 1-6. They're sitting down there with the Pistons, and if you're sitting with the Pistons, it's not a good look because if anybody wants to watch a train wreck on television, go watch a Detroit Pistons game. Jeremy Grant, good work. I'm glad you got your high usage rate and are the worst version of James Harden I've ever seen in my life. But enjoy the 1-7 record. But Toronto, I don't know if we thought they'd be Eastern contenders, but I think we thought they'd be on the fringe of being an Eastern contender. And they're sitting down here at the bottom. They're worse than Washington right now. So what do you make of this start? Their defense has been really good. It's one of the tops in the leagues, but they can't seem to generate any offense. Pascal Siakam has just looked worse and worse. I don't know what to make of this team. What do you make of it?
Yeah, it's to me, If I had to go back, I would have to look at my notes and to kind of see where I thought this team was going to end up. I definitely didn't think that they'd be a contender, but I thought that they'd probably kind of scratch the surface of it.
Like they were last year. They battled Boston to 7 games and, a tough out. But right now they're just terrible.
Yeah, yeah, and I don't know. To me, I just feel like this team has put a little too much emphasis on defense. Now, you said that they're currently, what are they on defense?
I think last I saw they were like number 4 in the league in defense. Now that might have changed. I saw it a couple days ago.
So, I mean, they're definitely playing well defensively.
But they're like 30th in offense.
That's the concern, is that they just seem to show no offense, and for some reason the coach just keeps hammering this defense will create offense. And I know that there's certain situations where that's true, where offense comes from defensive play, but it just doesn't seem to be the case with this team, and it's a little concerning. Am I shocked that they're at 1-6 right now? A little bit. I didn't think they would be this bad, but I don't know. I think that Baines has struggled to really make an impact this season, and that probably plays some into it. I know that he hasn't been horrible defensively, but he's offensively
he's no
hasn't
longer
really.
hitting threes like he was last year.
Yeah, and so I mean, I don't know. To me, this team is really really confusing because, like I said, I didn't expect them to be good, but I also didn't expect them to be this bad. They're definitely not in good company with that record, and they definitely have some things to do now. They just need to get their offense good enough to keep them in games, because, like you said, defensively they're playing well. It's offensively where the struggles are. Can they fix it in time? I don't know. I would seriously have to see some different implementations on the philosophy to believe that they can really shake it up offensively. I just don't see it.
Yeah. Do you think they can turn it around? I'm not totally out on them yet, but I think we thought a couple of those teams might drop out of the playoffs, and a couple of the ones that missed it last year will move in. Is Toronto going to be one of those teams that ends up falling out? And if they are, do you start to look to rebuild this? I know you gave Van Fleet a bunch of money. You probably keep Van Fleet, but Kyle's sort of aging out. Do you look to move him? I don't know what you do with Pascal Siakam, because I think his value is much lower than it was last year. OG seems like a good piece, but I don't know what you do with him. I'm just curious what you think about revamping, or stay the case and sort of ride the Titanic out with the ship if it starts to sink even further.
I don't know, because I mean, some of these guys, like you said, Van Fleet, I think he's been one of the bright spots. Larry is doing what Larry does. I don't know. It's really hard for me, especially this early on, to kind of think that they have to completely. There's certain teams that I could tell you almost with confidence, just drop what you're doing and rebuild. I don't know if Toronto is one of those teams just yet. I still like some of the pieces that they have, and like you said, defensively they've shown a lot of life. It's the offensive side of the ball that really worries me, and I don't know if they can fix that. Like I said, maybe halfway through the season I'll get a better idea of this team's makeup going forward. But right now, as I said, I just think it's a little worrisome.
Yeah. Kyle's been all right. What do you make of the Pascal Siakam right now? It just roll over from what went down with the Celtics in the playoffs, where, basically it was atrocious, and he hasn't looked much better this year. Do you just sort of wait it out? I should say they're playing all their games in Tampa Bay right now. For anyone who doesn't know, they're the Toronto Raptors. So maybe that's messing him up a little bit. Supposedly Pascal had a lot of problems in the bubble mentally. Is there a way back for him, or is he just he hit his ceiling and now we're seeing sort of a regression back to the mean?
I don't know. It's really hard for me to pinpoint. I mean, when you look at the numbers really don't look that bad. He's averaging 20 points per game. but he's shooting just below, I mean, just above 48%, if I'm not mistaken. Um, Rebounds is where I think I've seen a little bit of a drop off. I think he's at 7.7 right now, which is a little concerning. You'd expect him to be, well, I think he is the team leader, but you would expect him to kind of put up bigger numbers there. I don't know. To me, like I said, I think this is just one of those teams where I need to see a little bit more of them, see if they can kind of right the ship. Because, like I said, I didn't expect them to be good, but I didn't expect them to be bad either. So I don't know. Maybe I'll get a better idea, a few more weeks into the season.
Will they make the playoffs?
I don't think they will. I think that this slow start is really going to hurt them. Them not playing at home is probably also hurting them. There's got to be some sort of mental aspect to that, but I don't think they make the playoffs. I thought that prior to the season, they were probably, like you said, on the fringe of it. And I think that right now, their current play is probably pushing them outwards looking in.
Yeah. All right. So that's our 8 NBA things of the week. Be sure to tune in next week when we have 8 more NBA things of the week. Thanks, Achilles Rain, for joining us. Where can we find you, Achilles?
As always, you can find me on Twitter at TD Achilles, YouTube at That Dude Achilles, and Facebook as Achilles Rain.
Thanks for Achilles Rain for joining us, and we're out.